My name is John Andre Francois. I was a Los Angeles police officer from the years of 1990 to 1999, 2000, and also did law enforcement in the Air Force prior to that for 3 years. I ended up being the first non-white explosive technician in LAPD's history in 1996. I got a call of a burglary, and I'm working in a one-man unit that all I do is take reports and back up the two-man units. So I go up there, and her house had been burglarized, and I had spoken to the desk officer who sent me. I had all the particulars, so I show up, I walk up to the door and knock. She opens the door and goes, "Holy shit, they sent a nigger here? My house was broken in by one of you people, and they're going to send you." And I said, first off, ma'am, I'm going to start over. I said, because I'm not coming into your home or doing a report if you're going to speak that way. And she said, "I don't care." I said, "Well, I tell you what, calm down. What I'm going to do is," and I had to laugh because, my mom didn't name me nigger. I didn't associate as a nigger. If somebody yells it, I don't look around to see. And so I said, "You know what? I'm going to go sit in my car. I have to catch up on my log. When you're willing to come out and act like a decent citizen to a decent police officer, I'll take your report." I said, "Because if you don't, I'm canceling the report and letting them know you refuse service. And nobody's going to come." Now, that might have been a falsehood, but I said, "And nobody's going to come to take that report." And so I went and I sat in my vehicle and I started doing the log, and I saw when she came out the door about 15 minutes later, and she walked over. I rolled down the passenger window and I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "I'm sorry." She goes, "It just felt like a real violation when my house was broken into. And I appreciate you, not getting so upset that you just drove off." She goes, "Accept my apology, and I don't mind. I'd like you to do your job." And so,
okay, you were fine with that.
Yeah, because most of the time people act out of fear and hurt, and that's how they react. Even when you see a young police officer or an older one, when he walks up to a car and he has his hand on his gun all the time and he's puffing up and yelling at people, he's saying, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm afraid. And this could turn deadly. In my mind, I'm scared. So I have to be puffed up and big and use authority to cover the fact that I'm afraid."
What are some other names we're throwing your way?
Porch monkey, the white man's trained monkey, Uncle's Tom, spear chucker. I mean, a porch monkey in uniform, all kinds of stuff.
But you still felt good about serving the community and doing your job all the same, right?
Yeah, and the simple fact is, if you're raised to know the history of all those words and how they're used to hurt people, I was paid, and I looked at it as I was a knight of the realm. I didn't have the ability to be insulted because I'm representing the city. And as long as I'm wearing that badge, that's who I'm representing, not myself. If somebody spits on me, they go to jail for battery, but that's not my clothes. Those uniforms were issued to me. If somebody wants to fight, I don't take it personal. Once the fight's over, there's no good even. I've been punched. I've been kicked. And yeah, you get angry, but you have to have the self-control and professionalism to realize that once you've subdued that person and there's no more resistance or possibility of resistance, you should immediately stop using force. And so basically, whenever somebody starts calling names, hey, that's part of the job. They don't know your mama. That's what I told one of the officers one time. I was like, "Why are you hitting that guy with your flashlight?" "He called my mother a whore." I'm like, "Is she?" And he goes, "What?" I go, "Is your mother a whore?" He goes, "No." I go, "Then why in the heck would you fall for that? And he's never met your mama." And he goes, "Man, you know what? But it just pisses me off." I go, "Listen, what's going to piss you off is when we take him to the hospital and I have to tell him what you did." he immediately stopped and became very apologetic. And he goes, man, I don't want to get in trouble, so could you, cover for him? I was like, listen, you busted his lip. I go, you better talk to him, because if he tells the medical people what happened, I'm not lying for you. Because there was a certain point when I got on the department that I noticed that lying became loyalty. Prior, loyalty just meant that you protected citizens, you knew the Constitution and what freedoms people were supposed to have and how to protect them. Now, to me, it seems when they say the circle in the wagons and the thin blue line, yeah, it's always been that way, but there's always been a good portion of officers who took their duty serious enough to where they would tell the truth. And a real quick example, if you don't mind, we had an officer on the department. Didn't see it happen, but it was legend, and it happened. He pulled over a car. Turns out the guy was wanted and a really bad guy, like a armed robbery. Hurt a bunch of people, had maybe even shot some people. And the officer, when he found out this guy was wanted, took his 12 gauge and told the guy, okay, you have to step back to my car. And when they were walking towards his car, he tripped on a rock or something, had his finger on the trigger, and he blew this guy in half. Killed him. And when the shooting team got there and they were doing the investigation, they said, well, anybody that's considered a continued threat to the community, you can shoot if they're running away. Like if they caught, like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, if they knew it was him and he was about to get away, you're allowed to shoot him in the back for running. It's a fleeing felon. And it says if he would be a continued threat to the community, if he's at large, then that's one of the ways you can shoot somebody that's running from you.
If they're at large.
Yeah, if they get away, if they're going to present a continued deadly threat to the community, because that means it's about what you know at the time that you pull the trigger. If you know this is a really bad guy who's raped a bunch of women, who's killed people, if you know that because he's been wanted and you've positively identified him, then yeah, you can gun him down if he tries to run. It's called fleeing felon. And so the problem is he didn't know how bad this guy was, but he knew when they said, okay, this guy has felony wants and warrants, which means bad guy. And he tripped and blew this guy in half. And when the shooting team got there and said, okay, he was wanted for a lot of bad things, so he tried to make a break for it, right? And he wouldn't take the out. He said, no. He said, I was just tripped and I had my finger on the trigger and made a mistake. Now, he did I think it was 90 days off without pay or something. But I always respected the fact that he wasn't going to lose his integrity by lying.